Hello and welcome to this installment of the Avera Family Forum, where we're talking today about technology and helping our students, our children, and sometimes even ourselves as adults set some boundaries and really define what that use should look like, what the expectations should be in our own families. And we have some guests here to join us today to talk through a little bit about what technology looks like in schools, some of the dangers, pitfalls, and also some good things, because there are some good things as well. So first of all, Holly, I'll have you introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Holly Borchers. I'm a school counselor. I work at Jefferson High School here in Sioux Falls.
Thank you. And Dr. Jackman.
I'm Wallace Jackman. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and a licensed clinical social worker, the Avera Director of Psychology.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for being here today for this topic. I think it's a topic that is on the minds of many, whether or not you think you have it under control or not. Every week, do you see the number of hours when it comes up and shows you your screen time on your phone? Are you ever surprised? What is it? What amount of time have your kids invested in screen time during the week? And what is that? Is there a benefit to it? Is that taking us away from other things? All things to consider. And Dr. Jackman, we talked prior, and we talked a lot about what are some of the positive and negative aspects of the use of social media and technology in general. If we want to say positive aspects,
okay,
why don't we
positive.
start
Let's
with
just
that?
stay positive right now, right?
Right,
Okay.
let's start with that.
Well, we all know adolescents, it's really important for them to connect with other kids. In fact, they would prefer sometimes to speak with their peers more so than they would their parents or other adults. So they're going to listen to them more. And so they often fear that they're missing out on things. And so one of the positive pieces is that they're able to connect with other individuals. Sometimes there's groups online that might be appropriate, constructive groups that are supportive groups that are going to help them connect with entities or individuals that might be able to help them, whether it be in the school or the community or just socializing with other individuals.
Kids are so much more connected. That's what I recognize with my own kids. They have friends that are all over, and so you go to the mall or you go to a large event and they're talking to this person, that person. I'm thinking to myself, I've never seen that kid before.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But yet they consider them friends. So in some respects, that broadening and networking is kind of a great thing.
It's most certainly. I mean, it can expand their social network. Am I still supposed to stay on positives?
Well, if you feel like flipping to negative, there's also a flip side to that, right?
The flip side is, as we expand that social network, especially geographically, we have no idea as to the communities and the schools they're going to, and we don't have the ability to kind of check up on people as easily. And so that makes it much more difficult than if I'm just in my home school. I'm easily able to connect with other individuals that might have an earshot of what is going on with these people that I'm ready to connect with as friendships, versus if they're 50, 60, 200 miles away, you don't have the capabilities to do that. So safety becomes a concern.
Yeah, and certainly we've seen situations that have transpired where ill intent, where an adult, makes himself appear to be a student and then creates a relationship, and then suddenly there's criminal behavior involved, and that's a possibility as well. So challenges for sure, but some positives, some negatives. Holly, what do you see in the hallways of Jefferson High School in your experience? How is technology changing the life of teenagers today?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Jackman for coming today. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
In the hallways, I think, social media, technology in general has certainly helped communication between teachers and students, coaches. I think of my own kids, and just in a second they can figure out what color socks I'm supposed to wear to football, or who's driving me here. So those parts are really nice. But when it comes to boundary setting, sometimes, especially those elementary, middle school kids with phones, they don't always know when to quit and or who to friend or what to view, and so it is hard to kind of help them develop that on the fly.
Do you see it creating issues in relationships and such?
Sometimes, for sure. Just with taking pictures, maybe when you don't want a picture to be taken, or maybe there's a little friction in a relationship that would be best worked out in person, but instead we're going to our phones, and you'll have students come in between classes, I just got broke up with on Snapchat, and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think we as counselors, and I know teachers and all adults know that a little friction isn't a bad thing, and school is a great time to learn how to deal with a little conflict or a little hardship. And when we're just resorting to our phones, you kind of miss out on those different social skills that you learn. And so yeah, definitely we see kids just going to your phone instead of
Right.
Yep.
hey, how we doing? Hi, hey, how we doing?
Yep. I would piggyback on that. Is when we know from research that almost a majority of breakups are either beginning or occurring online. This isn't just a child or adolescent thing, and I'm going to refer to that later. Is that this is an adult issue too? That adults are having these conversations. And one thing I always tell my clients, that words get lost in translation. And so when someone texts something online or on their text on a cell phone, you're not really sure what that means. I mean, something as simple as "How are you doing?" could mean "How are you doing?" or "How are you doing?" It can mean there's a lot of nuance to the English language, and you aren't able to pick up some of those nuances, and so folks can get offended and have issues because of something they've seen on text.
Well, and as Holly was talking and you alluded to, our kids are missing out on these social interactions, but as adults, we're also missing out on these interactions and not necessarily modeling the best kinds of behaviors.
Most definitely.
Okay, so that obviously is something we need to be concerned about as well, modeling the right kind of behavior.
Yeah, as we speak on attempting to set boundaries with our children, we have to be models for that behavior as well. So you're 100% correct. I mean, 26% of car accidents are based on somebody being on their phone, and that's raised every year. So that's telling us that there's parents driving around with their children while they're on their phone. And that's just one of many examples I think all of us could come up with in which we aren't modeling the behavior. So why would the kids listen to us when we have the phone on at the dinner table, or we're at the restaurant and we're on our phone? So that's just something I think parents and us as adults have to be cognizant of.
Absolutely. What are some of the addictive behaviors that you notice? I know right now the Sioux Falls School District is collecting feedback about cell phones from students, parents, principals, and teachers in the classroom, and asking, what are some of the behaviors and when does it become a challenge? I think of those addictive behaviors of maybe coming into a classroom and you have the phone in your hoodie and you constantly have to be looking at it. But what are some of the examples of what you see?
I think it can become a power struggle for a teacher where, someone asks a student to put, just kindly put your phone away because we're going to focus on the instruction now. And the student becomes very agitated and very upset and will not do it. And now we're locking horns and we're in a power struggle when it just shouldn't be. I don't know if you...
That's exactly right. I mean, if I may, I want to use my phone as a prop. I mean, if I bring my phone out right now during this program and I'm looking at this, people are in the audience, I think, boy, he's more interested in his phone than he is in what he's doing right now. And so that same thing holds true whether it be in the classroom or in the restaurant or socializing. If I have that phone in my hand, just even if I'm not looking at it, it's insinuating that as soon as something pops up on that screen, as soon as I get a notification, you guys are second-class citizens. This is much more important for me to look at. And so even if the person, they'll say, well, I'm not really looking at it, or I've got the notifications off. It doesn't really matter because you're insinuating that is more important than what's going on right here.
So out of sight, out of mind is the best practice.
For one, definitely put it out of sight and turn off notifications, turn off the buzzing. There's a term that's called phantom ring. This is how insidious this has become. There's a term called phantom ring syndrome, and we've all encountered it. Like you think, I think my phone rang, and you look it up, and nothing happened. And it's our brain.
I didn't know that had a name.
It has a name.
I always call it a pacifier. I'm like, that's like a pacifier for you guys. It's like, where is it? Like, can you just, it's an adult adolescent adult pacifier.
And I think the more that happens,
Yeah.
the more likely that's a sign of you're addicted to your cell phone. You're having problems. If that's happening consistently, that you feel like you constantly have to check for it.
And fear of missing out.
Correct, that FOMO.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's extremely important with adolescents because they always want to be able to connect with their peers, and they feel like they're missing out on something. That leads to them wanting to check their phone more.
What kind of long-term impact do you think that could have, this immediacy, everything we're, got to be right there, responding immediately? What kind of long-term impact might that have on us as a human race?
Yeah, there's really good research on that, and it's really come out in about the last 10 years simply because smartphones weren't really established till about 2007, 2009. So we have a good almost 20 years of good research that supports there's a direct link between depression, anxiety, and smartphone or social media use. They're distinctly correlated. So the more time you spend on social media, it increases the risk of symptoms related to ADHD, but definitely anxiety and depression.
And that, for long-term impact, that societally, that's going to require more health care, more mental health care.
Correct.
Which we should be proactive on right now anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you count anxiety and depression, those are the number one causes of disability or folks calling in sick to work. And so it could have a link to how much they're on their cell phone or on social media.
Do we see attendance issues because of things that have been upsetting to kids?
There can be. I was looking at it as he was talking, and my data is anecdotal.
Okay.
I noticed kids they're lonely. Since there isn't as much interaction, we're doing a lot of this. Like they feel really alone. And
You're right.
I mean, I'm afraid we'll have a generation of people that are just, not interacting like this and really alone. Right. Sometimes definitely there's something that happens on social media, whether it's a picture or somebody said something about someone which spreads, and that seems to spread like wildfire, and students will not come to school that day because of that. That's certainly happened. I'm sure it happens at every level, and we hope they reach out and we can help rectify that at school. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know one of the other things we talked about is because of that need to always have the phone there. Yeah. It's really doing a number on our sleep pattern.
For sure. Oh, yes, and we try to tell parents that really want their kid to have a phone at school that, hey, there's like 100 adults here and we all have phones. You can just call the school. We'll go get your child and you can have a conversation. Like, it's okay. Because they really need to go to bed. Like, they really need to put that away. They got to go to bed. That you could speak to, I'm sure, the data on how much sleep you need, but it's certainly more than 3 or 4 hours. And if you have kids, I know on my caseload, they're Xbox, PlayStation, PCs, or even on their phone. And those things all have their place, but when it starts messing with sleep and now you're asleep in class and different things, obviously that's detrimental. So we encourage parents to leave the phones home if we can.
Yeah,
most certainly there's a link between problems with sleep and cell phone use. 86% of adolescents sleep with their phone either underneath their pillow or right close to them on bed. And I always tell my parents of adolescents that I see outpatient is to try to get those cell phones out of the bedroom.
Not just out from underneath the pillow, but physically out of the bedroom.
Physically, because the closer your phone is geographically distant within arm's reach, the more likely you're going to pick up your phone. People pick up their phone over 150 times per day. And so your brain knows that phone is there. And so even though you may not pick up your phone, it could disturb your sleep because it disrupts your circadian rhythm, your sleep-wake cycle. It disturbs that. And so you don't get good, deep REM sleep because the brain knows that the phone is there and it's kind of on semi-alert waiting for it to ring.
Yeah. Interesting. So getting the phone out of a bedroom of a teenager. I have a teenager.
Fun.
Fun. Can you start doing that if you've already, they've already established a pattern of having their phone and that kind of thing? It's possible. I know it's possible. I had a moment in time where I had my son's cell phone next to me in the evenings for about a week, and he survived.
Yeah.
He survived.
Yeah.
He didn't love it, but he survived.
One advantage we have at Avera, we have an inpatient setting, so we have adolescents, children, and adults, and they're not allowed to have their cell phones when they're hospitalized. And the average length of stay for children is, about 5 days, and adults is 3 to 5 days. And they leave saying they really didn't miss their phone as much as that they thought they would. They actually were relieved that they didn't have that pressure of having to check their phone all the time. And we monitor their sleep. We do 15-minute checks sometimes on patients, and so we know that they're sleeping, and they're actually sleeping better. They say they get some of their best sleep because they don't have, and one of the reasons is because they don't have their phone with them, and research supports that.
How do you know as a parent what's appropriate in terms of use by age? I mean, is there any chart out there that says if they are 12, they should spend this much time, or that type of thing? Is it, or I think parents are not even sure about what's happening in every other household, and so how do they implement things that they're just not sure about?
I don't know of a specific chart, but I do know that the American Academy of Pediatrics clearly indicates that children under the age of 2 should have no screen time. Period. 0, zip. So if people are out there letting their 2-year-olds play on tablets or whatnot, the Pediatric Academy says you shouldn't do that. And there's several reasons, which I won't get into today, but it's just not good for their development. Right. Generally speaking, kind of the sweet spot is anything more than 1.5, 2 hours per day on social media. You're probably increasing the risk of some of those disorders, issues that I spoke of earlier, depression and anxiety.
Right.
Poor concentration, poor focus, memory problems. Yeah.
Now, I just know people out there are going to say, well, you guys, in schools, you give students Chromebooks. That's true. So what is the difference between using a Chromebook and a screen for education, and where do we cross the line into distraction?
Right, and you'll hear teachers say a lot, close those tabs. You should only have this tab open, because it is very tempting to open up another tab, and you're playing your game on this side and working on your canvas on this side. So we do. That is true. We do kind of they'll feed that habit a little bit. But I've heard a lot. Close those tabs.
I didn't know that.
And I think teachers, I can't speak for all teachers, but they do build in incentives. If you have your work done, we try to give students free periods or time to be on your phone or your Chromebook, whatever it is, doing other things once you have your work done. So use it as an incentive and try not to make it a distraction from the learning that's going on.
Right, let's do the work first.
Right.
Let's get our responsibilities taken care of first. And that's a good lesson for us all, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, because things can pull us in so many times on social media. Oftentimes it's, with TikTok, it's fast clips, things like that, and suddenly you look at the clock and it's like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 20 minutes already.
Right.
You just lose yourself.
Gone down the proverbial rabbit hole. And everyone's done it. And it's not really a complete weakness on our part. I really want to put some emphasis on this point, that it's not our weakness. It's the developers of these programs that have built-in algorithms that determine what it is that we're looking at. I mean, they get paid to determine how much time that your eyes are spent looking at something. Even if it's something for 2.5 seconds, you're like, well, I only looked at that furniture store for 3 seconds. It determines how much you looked at it, and you're going to get bombarded with furniture stores. You're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Because that's how they make money. And so the rabbit hole the two of you go down wouldn't be the same rabbit hole I go down, because it's going to be based upon what I'm looking at online.
And so we really could be victim to that if we don't know that going in, set some limits. So let's talk about setting those limits. Practical takeaways. What do we tell parents? How do we help them establish new priorities and new ways to deal with social media and boundaries? I mean, if they can reach out to you for help,
Sure.
if needed.
Yeah, and well, as a parent myself and someone that works in a school, it's hard to do, but you can't always give in to what they want. You know, you have to say, hey,
Right.
this is
Here
how
are
it
the
goes. We can do
rules.
this the easy way or the hard way. I mean, I pay the bill for the phone, so
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's different, I suppose, if the child does, but those same kind of things. If you can complete these
Right.
things you need to take care of, and you have your responsibilities. And I also want to know what you're looking at. I respect
Right.
your privacy as my child, but at the same time, I just want to
You're
know
my
what you're
child,
looking at.
under the age of 18.
I want to see what you're looking at. I just want to know what you're doing. I don't need to know every little thing, but just give me an idea of what you're into, and just develop a lot of conversation about it. And I mean, I've learned about all kinds of things I didn't know about through my boys.
Some I wish that I didn't learn.
What they're into and things. And then I feel like I'm kind of a part of that. And even as a school counselor, just kind of having my pulse on, or a pulse on what are they looking at? What are they into?
Right.
What's kind of trending, and how can we help them navigate? Because at least me, I've made all those mistakes already. So if I can kind of help them avoid some of those pitfalls, I will. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and what would you say in terms of things that we can do, practical takeaways? What should parents step forward and really do?
Well, at first, I think it would be important to challenge not myself, but my child too, is how much time do they think that they're using? Do they think they're overusing it? And a majority of the times, they're going to say they know that they're probably spending a little too much time on it. And so first monitor and figure out, is it an hour? Is it 5 hours? How much time am I actually spending? Just have to be really honest with themselves. I'd go back to my other point, is getting it out of the bedroom. I just see that as so important. Or if you can't get out of the bedroom, at least put it on the dresser or something so you can't reach it, and get in the habit of that it doesn't disturb the person's sleep. I think from parent perspective, look at vacations or activities in which the cell phone is not conducive to the activity that you're engaging in. So soccer, swimming, you're not going to be swimming hope you're not going to be swimming with your phone in your hand. I remember one vacation I went with my little girls, they were younger, but to Colorado, and it was a no Wi-Fi vacation, and we made sure we spent time at a place where there was no Wi-Fi connection.
Sure.
It was one of the best vacations we had.
Yeah.
And so just finding opportunities in which they don't have the time or the access to that cell phone versus that they do. Maybe I don't know the best way to put it.
And I think one of the things we don't see often enough anymore, and my family is, victim of this as well, but board game nights, going out and throwing a football in the backyard, doing those things. We might be watching football, but we probably have our, phone in our hands and accessing different things, and just it's easy to do. It's hard habit to break.
Right.
And I think, though, that it's important, all the statistics, everything that we focus on, the challenges that we have before us, many of them could be resolved if we just take a minute and say, hey, is this really necessary? Is the phone really necessary?
Right.
Is social media a place I should be spending most of my time, or is there somewhere that I could benefit other than social media?
Yep, other things that are more important, like our relationships and our families and our loved ones.
All right. Well, parting thoughts, any last words for parents?
Again, I think we have to be honest, and we have to set examples. I'm as guilty as anyone else that there's times when I shouldn't be on my phone as much as I am, and I have to be more cognizant, and then that might be passed on as an example to my children.
Right. And if people need help, what should they do?
They could talk with their school counselor, of course. We're always willing to work with kids and parents, and just reach out to whatever other trusted adults friends have for support and encouragement. Maybe be that kid on the block that has a reputation for not answering back right away, and now all of a sudden that's a cool thing to do.
Creating a new norm.
Yes, if people aren't used to you getting back to them right away, then it's easier to not have it. So.
Exactly.
Good point. Very good point.
And Avera has resources available?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, whether it be your family practice physician, a trusted colleague, or a therapist, a psychologist can visit with you about some of those things.
Okay, well, definitely an important conversation to have with your kids, and why not expand those conversations and just put the phone down for a bit, get to know each other and share and care on a new level. So thanks for joining us today on the Avera Family Forum.